Shem, are you ready? Okay. I think the rabbi's ready. Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad.
Good evening, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
So nice to see everybody tonight, and welcome to those who are live streaming. I want to welcome Allison Shippey, who is our cantorial soloist for this evening, along with our famous accompanist, Marshall Griffith. And we have more to say about Marshall at the Shahrianu moment. We're going to begin our service this evening with the lighting of the Shabbat candles. As these candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who have kindled light.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
We continue now in our prayer books on page 26, and I invite you to rise for the Chatzi Kaddish.
Yitkadal ve'yitkadash shemei Rabbah,
Amen.
v'alma divrach yurtei, v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon, u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. Bagala, u'v'zman kariv, ve'imeru.
Amen.
Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach, le'alam olol me'almaya, yitbarach, yitbarach, ve'yishtabach, v'yitpar v'yitramam v'yitnasei, ve'yitadar, ve'yitaleh, ve'yitalal, shemei dekudeshah.
Barichu.
Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma ve'imeru.
Amen. Continuing with the Baruchu, the call to worship on page 28.
Barechu et Adonai hamevorach, Baruch Adonai hamevorach, leolam evaed.
Together, praise Adonai, to whom praise is due forever. Praise be Adonai, to whom praise is due now and forever. On page 33, as you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Do not let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
Together. Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. Blessed is God's glorious majesty forever and ever. You may be seated, and we continue together on page 36, chanting the V'ahavta.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Before we read the V'ahavta in English, I want to make a comment or two about it. The word you, the pronoun you in English, can stand for both the singular and the plural. In the first paragraph of the V'ahavta, the you is singular, V'ahavta. And so each individual, each of us is called upon as an individual to struggle for something that is difficult, to love God. And I say that it is difficult because we know that we are regularly beset by problems and the imperfections in the created world. And so to love God is, and often is, a challenge which faces each of us. When you get to the second paragraph, thus you shall remember, in Hebrew, Leman Tizkaru, it turns to the plural you. That is a clue that passage doesn't continue in the Bible from which both these paragraphs come. It doesn't continue paragraph 1. It comes from a different place. The first paragraph, as it says at the bottom, is from Deuteronomy 6, and the second paragraph is from Numbers chapter 15. But also, I think there is some poetry in what happens here. And that is, at the beginning, each of us as an individual is called to love God with all our hearts, souls, and might. But then it turns to the community. We are individuals, but finally our strength is in the community. And so it moves from me to all of us, from you singular to you plural. Let's read the translation together. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand, and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them upon the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai, your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai, your God, Adonai Elohechem, Emet. Turning to page 41. Sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come, the song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more, the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace.
Mi chamocha bo'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh. Nora tehilot osei fele, nora tehilot osei fele. Malechutecha ra'u vanecha bokei hayam lifnei Moshe zeili anu ve'amru Adonai imloch Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed.
Before moving on to our next prayer, I feel I must say something about what I just read and what we had sung on page 41. And it's what happened, maybe you recognize that I paused halfway through reading it, and it's a warning to all those who lead worship to prepare in advance. So this prayer came upon me unawares. And as I got to the line, the song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, which certainly does not apply to the present in the Middle East. So with your permission, I'm going to create a new verb tense, what I might call the aspirational present. This is what we want to be the case. The song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, is a fervent hope. Let's turn to page 43. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai haporei sukat shalom aleinu, v'al kol amo Yisrael v'al Yerushalayim.
ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת מקדשי שבי שבת כולם יספרו ויתענגו מטובך שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת והשביעי רצית בו וקידשו שבת חמדת ימים אותו קראת השבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת Shabbat. Zecher, Zecher, L'maaseh Bereshit Shabbat. Zecher, Zecher, L'maaseh Bereshit Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat. V'korei oneg Shabbat.
We now turn to page 46, and as you are able, I invite you to rise for the Amida.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avoteinu v'Imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chazanim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot Ve'imachot, U'mevii Geulah Livnei V'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo B'ahava, Melech Ozer Moshia U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Bezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai, Mechayei HaKol Atah, Rav Lehoshia, Mashiv HaRuach, Umorid HaGashem, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayei HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofeh Holim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Ba'al Gevurot, Umido Melach, Melech Meimit, Umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah lehachayot hakol.
Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei HaKol. Turning to page 53, let's read the passage at the top together. Days vanish and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. God, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence like lightning illumines the darkness in which we walk. Help us to see wherever we gaze that the bush burns unconsumed, and we, clay touched by God, will reach out for holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it. Blessed is the Eternal One, the Holy God. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. You may be seated. Turning now to page 61. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamvarech et Amo Yisrael, Bashalom.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha, tasim leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha, tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha, tasim leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם.
Let's pause for moments for silent meditation.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. ואמרו אמן, יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל.
Our Torah portion for this week is Parshat Yitro. Yitro is Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses, who comes to Moses when Moses and the people had arrived at Mount Sinai, and as you may remember, notices that Moses is forced to be a workaholic, that he was in charge of all judicial matters, from the most consequential to the least consequential, and Jethro said to him, how about calling on some others to help you and you'll take the harder cases? And what's quite interesting about that is the Torah has a non-Israelite teaching Moses in anticipation of Moses's soon teaching the people. There are 3 Torah portions, as a matter of fact, the names of whom and the names of which are the names of non-Israelites. There's Noah, Parshat Noach. There's Jethro, Parshat Yitro. And there's Parshat Balak in Numbers, beginning in chapter 22 of the book of Numbers. Also, an interesting phenomenon, I don't know whether it's relevant or important to make something out of it, but I'm going to anyway. And that is that those who divided up the Torah portions and reckoned with the fact that the convention is to name the portion after the first significant word, chose not to avoid the three non-Israelites and to go right ahead and name Torah portions after them. I'd like to think that that is part of the universalist impulse in biblical and the Jewish tradition. Well, in the Torah portion, Parshat Yitro, Jethro, are the Ten Commandments. And I've prepared sheets. I hope, I was told that we ran out of them. I hope you have them. Can you, anybody, will you raise your hand if you can't see one? Can't see a sheet? Okay, well, okay. Great. If we can bring another one over there, that would be great. Anybody else? A couple of people in the back. Maybe everybody have one now? So what I'd like to do is to spend a few moments together looking at the Ten Commandments. Here they are, the first words emblazoned here right above the ark. The two tablets, the first 5 commandments and the second 5 commandments, and the fact that they are often in the front over the ark in a synagogue indicates their importance. As a matter of fact, they were deemed to be so important that in the Second Temple period, which goes from 515 before the Common Era to 70 of the Common Era, Second Temple period ends with the destruction of the Second Temple. During the Second Temple period, the Ten Commandments were read as part of the service. And you perhaps have noticed over the years that we don't read the Ten Commandments in the service. Why not? What's more important than the Ten Commandments? And therefore, they ought to be read daily or weekly. Though they were an important part of the service in the Second Temple period, they were taken out of the prayer book. We might have thought they were never put in, that's why they're not there. No, they were in, but they were taken out because sectarians, those opposed to the normative tradition, so-called, made the claim that that's the sum and substance of the Jewish tradition. That the Ten Commandments are so consequential that one could think that's all there is to it. And therefore, to dramatize the fact that there is a lot more than the Ten Commandments in the Jewish tradition, they were taken out. So the accusation that this is all there is would not have had any longer any relevance. You can see that what I've done here is to bring the Hebrew and then to bring the English. And I've underlined the summary statement, so to speak, of each of the Ten Commandments. The first 5 are quite elaborated, and the last 5 are very terse, with the exception of the last one. So what I'd like to do is to make a couple of comments about them, just to stimulate our thinking and to deepen our understanding of these really quite remarkable commandments. Remarkable not only for their content, but because of their comprehensiveness. And I want to make that case a bit tonight. Also because it's easy to memorize the Ten Commandments if you just feel that you want to memorize the main statement. So they're rich and complex, but also quite simple in their outline form. One of the important aspects of the Ten Commandments is the distribution between positive and negative commandments. Thou shalt and thou shalt not. There are only 3 commandments that are stated in the positive. Number 1, hope you can see that I've numbered them along the left margin in the English. I am the Lord your God. Number 4, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. And number 5, honor your father and your mother. 7 of the 10 are in the negative. One might think of it in the following terms. If one wants to create something in a forest, and you enter the forest and it's dense with trees, first you clear away those that are not relevant to what you're trying to do, and then you build something up in the having been cleared away portion. And what the Ten Commandments does, fundamentally, is it clears away some of the impediments to lead a productive and flourishing life. And so the Ten Commandments, in a way, lays the foundation without giving us a fully elaborate view of how to flourish according to the Jewish tradition. It clears away the impediments. In fact, let's look at 6 through 10. You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness, you shall not covet your neighbor's house. I'd like to suggest to you that the title for these 5 commandments might be restraint. These commandments are trying to get us to clear away those impulses of the human heart that stand in the way of flourishing. It's not that we want to murder, but we do often have what we might call murderous impulses in our hearts. Committing adultery. The Torah is concerned about the integrity and the coherence of the family. And to commit adultery beyond what is sanctified by marriage is, in a way, an impulse in the heart which has to be put aside in order for the family to flourish. And as Maimonides pointed out, the family is the first part of the city. We learn how to be good citizens first and foremost in our families. Do not steal. Don't bear false witness. Don't covet. Don't be envious. These are some of the negative passions in the human heart, which the second tablet suggests needs to be put aside in order for us to live good lives. Commandment 1, I, the Lord, am your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. There's a controversy in our tradition between Maimonides and Nachmanides. Maimonides says, yes, this is a commandment. Nachmanides says, no, it's not a commandment, it's a preface. And you can see Nachmanides' point. I am the Lord your God. This is not an imperative. So it can be seen as an introduction. Maimonides wants to make the point that this verb am, I am, is I am to be. I am to be your God. And so for Maimonides, this has to be a commandment because it lays the foundation for all that follows. And notice what the commandment suggests, that God enters history. Aristotle's God, or we might say the God of the philosophers, does not enter history, but essentially stands there waiting for emulation. Just as God reasons, so should we reason. So reasons Aristotle. But the God of religion does not just sit there in her transcendence, but actually enters into the processes of human interaction. As God did, God entered into history and redeemed the people from Egypt. You shall have no other gods before me. I want to suggest to you that Commandment 1 and Commandment 2 combined make monotheism. Commandment 1 by itself is not monotheism. I am the Lord your God, and there are for other peoples other gods. This is halfway between monotheism and polytheism, an idea known as henotheism, one God per people, but many gods, as there are many peoples. The first commandment alone is henotheistic. I am your God. Number 2 adds to that, and there are no other gods. And that's monotheism. Number 2 suggests to us that we should, as it says here, don't make yourself a sculptured image or any likeness of what is in the heavens above and on the earth below or on the waters of the earth. Even though God enters the historical process, God is not embedded in the historical process or in nature. God is separate. And any time you try to make an image of God, you are bringing God into nature. And God is and ought to be seen as above and beyond nature. God is above, but enters, and by entering, does not become a part of the natural world. Number 3, you shall not swear falsely by the name of God. Now, number 3, I think, is very significant because it says to us that we have the privilege of putting the name of God on our lips. We can talk about God. We can talk about our relationship to God. We can talk about God in history. But that privilege should not be abused. Don't use the name of God, which we, in a way, represents our reverence for God. Don't use that name for false or vain purposes. It's precisely the treasure that is our capacity to utter the name of God that it creates the worry that we're going to use it as any old other noun. And it shouldn't be seen that way. Some of you know that when I write the name of God, I always write G-D. I do it because I want to remind myself every time I use the name of God that this is a special treasure of a word that I have the privilege of thinking about and saying. G-D to me is a reminder that the name of God is not any old noun. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the 7th is a Sabbath of the Lord. You shall not do any work, you, your son, your daughter, your male or female, slave or your cattle or the stranger who is within your settlements. Every living creature has a right to rest on the Sabbath. You may say, what is the word slave doing in there? Especially since we were just freed from slavery in Egypt. Why are we bringing it back into this central list? And here's what, so far, I've come to think about it. Next year, the year after, I may have changed my mind. The Torah is both deeply realistic and deeply idealistic. It doesn't want to change society root and branch all at once. It's not revolutionary. Its view is, can we take the conventions of a given society and refine and deepen, even to challenge them, while not overturning the present order? So that slavery is accepted, but the whole impulse of the Torah is to undo and eliminate it. But for now, we're going to say about slaves that they, like us, have the right to rest on Shabbat. For in 6 days, verse 11, the Lord made heaven and earth and all that is in them. Therefore, we should rest. This idea of the imitation of God. God rested, we should rest. So I want to suggest to you now that the first 4 commandments are about our relationship with God. Let's call this the vertical dimension of religion. The sense that there is a transcendent world where there is a God and where there are absolutes. And that this world, so to speak, has been communicated to us. And when we come to worship or when we do a good deed, we are connecting ourselves to the absolutes of that transcendent world. When we begin with number 5, we are dealing with the horizontal dimension. If the vertical dimension is what we might call religion, this doesn't work exactly, but I'll go with it. 5 through 10 represent the social dimension. What are the lineaments, the essentials of the good society? Honor your mother and your father, that you may long endure on the land that the Lord your God is assigning you. It begins with the family and with the relationship of children to their parents. Notice this is not a reciprocal relationship. The children have an obligation to honor parents, but the parents don't have a similar obligation to honor the children. The parents have a special status in the family, and unless they are honored, we cannot learn from them. Parents impose discipline, a way of life, and also a model for how to behave. When you think about that you may long endure on the land that the Lord your God is assigning you, you may think that this is placed here as a notion of the reward for honoring your parents. If you honor your parents, you'll get a reward. That, I believe, is not what the second half suggests. I believe what it suggests is that by honoring your parents, by treating the family as sacred, and especially this relationship, as a result of this, society will be deeper, more settled, more profound. And a society that is healthy inherently, unless there's something that intervenes, able to sustain itself down through the years and through the ages. It's not that a long life in the land is a reward, it's a consequence. If the family is whole, the society is whole. If the society is whole, the society is healthy and can put aside more easily, maybe not inevitably, what threatens it, so that you may, as a result, live long on the land. Now come the negative commandments. You shall not murder. It does not say you shall not kill. Murder is wrongful killing. What counts as wrongful killing is a matter of definition. It's not a natural distinction between justified killing and non-justified killing. Is meat eating murder? Is self-defense murder? I suggest no, although one could certainly argue yes. Pacifists of a radical sort may suggest that any killing is murder. Vegetarians might say that meat eating is a kind of murder. But this is up to society to define the difference between rightful and wrongful. So that one could say the Torah is not opposed here to killing, justified killing, such as eating meat or self-defense. and that it does not count as murder. Adultery is a complex notion in the Torah, but it has something to do with illicit relationships outside the family. Stealing as well is equivocal. Is it just goods, or is it also ideas? Bear false witness. Covet your neighbor's house and your neighbor's wife or male or female slave. So these are the 10 Commandments, and I want to suggest to you something about how to think about the relationship between the first 4 commandments, the so-called religious commandments, and the last 6, the so-called social commandments. I might say that the religious commandments laid down the fundamental axioms for the social commandments to come. In a way, the social commandments are the consequence of observing, taking care of those first 4 commandments, lay the foundations, so that one might say the goal of the 10 commandments are the social commandments, and that the first 4 commandments are the axioms of that society. But it raises an interesting question. If the last 6 are the social commandments, why do I need the first 4? Isn't it enough to create a just society? Aren't the Enlightenment philosophers, Hobbes and Locke and Rousseau and Kant, interested in the axioms of a good society? And so many of the Enlightenment, the so-called atheistic Enlightenment, there is also a religious Enlightenment. The atheistic Enlightenment thinks that through reason alone, we can establish a just and caring society. So what is the necessity of the first 4 commandments? I want to cite something that one of my professors at rabbinical school once said. If you want to love your neighbor, you have to first begin by loving God. If you start by loving your neighbor, you will end up hating him. Our neighbors, I don't know about yours, I've had a few like this. And in fact, we're all like this. We're not so lovable all the time. And it's very easy not to love my neighbor. How can I get myself to love my neighbor? Not only as a good in itself, but as one of the foundations of a just and caring society. And my professor was making the point that unless I first start by loving God, from whom comes all human beings made in the image of God, and therefore with inherent dignity, which I have not attributed to them, their dignity doesn't come from me. If I start by loving my neighbor, I can soon find out that my neighbor is flawed. I've loaned him my rake, but he won't loan me his saw. And pretty soon I have negative feelings about my neighbor. Empirically, we're not all and never always lovable. But if I start by loving God and embrace its meaning and implications, that we are all in some sense lovable, then there's a chance that I am going to love my neighbor. Hence the 10 Commandments. The claim of the 10 Commandments, and you may disagree, is that a flourishing society depends on a foundation that transcends the society. And without that foundation, something about the nature of things, something about the power of justice and mercy and caring and compassion, if I don't embrace those notions, not as a result of induction, I see an example, I see another example, I infer that they exist. But if I don't start with those notions as real and as imperative for me, the chances of creating a durable society, so the argument goes, is diminished. It may be that the social commandments are the ultimate goal of the Ten Commandments, but without its foundation, the chances of arriving at it are all the more diminished. So, in these few minutes, I've tried to suggest to you that the Ten Commandments not only are famous, but deservedly famous, because though they're terse and memorizable, they create an extremely rich and powerful and dynamic worldview. We turn now, as we always do at this point in our service, to think about those members of our families and circle of friends who are ailing of body, of mind, and of spirit. I'm going to read the names that have been given to us and about whom we are thinking, and then I'll give you an opportunity to mention those about whom you are thinking. On this occasion, we think especially about Adele Adler, David Case, Bonnie Chiswick, Barry Cott, Jackson Curti, John Goodman, Michael Hartman, Mattie Jefferson, Milton Maltz, Janice Melnick, Dr. Marty Melnick, Richard Moore, Edith and Levi Rubenstein, Linda Sanders, Walter Schwartz, and Bob Shippey. Please mention the names of those about whom you are thinking if you wish. George Morris. Let's join now in the singing of the Misha Baruch. You can find the words on page 253.
Misha Baruch Avotenu Mikor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha Beirach Imotenu Mikor HaBracha Le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
We turn now in our prayer books to page 282, and I invite you to rise for the Aleinu.
Aleinu לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי ארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך
You may be seated. And we turn now in our prayer books to page 289 as we prepare for the recitation of the Mourner's Kaddish. The light of life is a finite flame. Like the Shabbat candles, life is kindled, it burns, it glows. It is radiant with warmth and beauty. But soon it fades, its substance is consumed, and it is no more. In light we see, in light we are seen. The flames dance, and our life burns down in gutters. There is an end to the flames. We see no more and are no more seen, yet we do not despair, for we are more than a memory slowly fading into the darkness. With our lives we give life. Something of us can never die. We move in the eternal cycle of darkness and death, of light and of life. We think now of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. We think especially on this occasion of a member of our congregational family whom we lost during this past week, Margie Ann Heller. We also think about those individuals who have been laid to rest during the past 30 days, Henry J. Goodman, Michael S. Berman, Audrey Amdur, Deborah Squires-Goebel, Alan M. Krause, Andrea Lushine. And we take into our hearts those individuals whose yahrzeits occur at this time. Roger H. Arnstein, Samuel Bayer, Dr. Alex V. Bartow, Marshall T. Beadall, Leon F. Bialowski, William Braverman, Harlan Brick, Samuel Lewis Butler, Marilyn Kaplane, Katie Fisher Cohen, Alice Rosenwas Cohn, Tilly DeVay, Marilee Jane Dickerson, Nancy Brenner Drucker, Alfred M. Emmerling, Marcus E. Fader Jr., Emma B. Field, Susan Frankel, Saul Goldfarb, Bernard Gottesman, Virginia Gottesman, Michael H. Green, Oscar J. Green, Seymour Gross, Jerome E. Grover, Arthur C. Hoffman, Rima B. Hoffman, Harry Horvitz, Jay Iglauer, Mark Jaskuluk, Nora Campbell Jordan, Patrick Joseph Jordan, Ann J. Kane, Nathan M. Kaplan, Esther Morse Katz, Joseph Katz, Ben R. Kern, Beulah Rosenbaum Klein, Benjamin F. Kopperlick, Minnie Korak Kux, Albert A. Levin, Ruth E. Loeb, Louis Luxemburg, Goldie Mandel, Sarah E. Mandelsweig, Minnie H. Markowitz, Stanley A. Meisel, Leah B. Melman, Barbara T. Miller, Rose Miller, Rachel Block Moss, Evelyn Gerson Newman, Erwin A. Newman, Steffi Proper, Rachel Rifshin, Eva B. Rosewater, Francis Rothman, Isidore Sands, Lillian Shaffron, Helen Shaw, Teresa Silberbach, Stella Silberman, Theodore T. Sindel, Ida B. Slavin, William N. Slavin, Teresa B. Steiner, Dr. David B. Stoyer, Bud Unger, David Warshawski, Florence H. Warshawski, Alex Weingarten, Jenny Weingart, Edward Alexander Weiskopf, Bubbles Whitman, Robert Wilkov, Rosalind H. Winkleman, Carrie Campen Wolf, Morris Woodle. We have also established the custom of, during the reading of the names, to mention 5 IDF soldiers who have recently lost their lives in fighting in the current war against Hamas. And we remember also Major Mordechai Shamir, Major Eitan Menachem Ne'eman, Major Oren Stern, Major Uriel Bibi, Major Eli Zisser. At this point, if anyone would like to mention a loved one or a friend whose name has not just now been read, please take this opportunity to do so. Shirley Reagan, Zichronam livracha. May their memories always be our blessing. At this point, I would like to invite those who are observing the Shiva period, the first 7 days after the death of a loved one, if you wish to please rise. Those who are observing the Shloshim period, the first 30 days after the death of a loved one, please rise. Those who are observing the Yartzeit, the anniversary of the death of a loved one, if you wish, please rise. And now as a caring congregation, let us all rise as together we express our gratitude to our God and together sanctify the name of God with the words of the Kaddish found in our prayer books on page 294 as we say together, Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah v'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayichon v'yomeichon v'chayedech al beit Yisrael v'agalav izman kariv v'yamru amen Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalau shmei dekudisha barichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma v'yamru amen Yehei shalom arabah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yamru amen Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yamru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort all the bereaved among us. And let us say together, Amen.
Amen.
You may be seated. And we turn now to our Shehechianu moments in which we celebrate the great things, the good things that are going on in our congregation as we all think about what it is that is going very well in our own lives. I want to congratulate Harriet Belkin, who celebrated her birthday on February the 1st. Happy birthday. I also, and remember at the very beginning, I said that I was going to come back to Marshall later. Marshall celebrated his birthday yesterday as well. Happy birthday, Marshall, and many, many more. Who else has a Shehechianu moment that they want to share? I'm sure all of us, if we think just a bit, however difficult our day today has been, can conjure up blessings with which our lives are sanctified. Let's sing together the Shehechianu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh
Our concluding song is Ein Keloheinu. You can find the words on page 322.
Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, Mi Keloheinu, Mi Kadonenu, Mi Kemalkeinu, Mi Kemoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu.
As we read, wine gladdens the human heart. Let's join together in the Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon inchilanu, zikaron lemasei v'reishit, ki hu yom tehila lemikroei kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim, ki vanu v'charta v'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon inhaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Amen.
L'chaim.
L'chaim.
And a blessing over our bounty.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Adonai Ozle Amo Yitain, Adonai Avarech et Amo Vashalom. May the Lord give strength unto God's people. May the Lord bless God's people, all of God's peoples, with the blessings of shalom, of peace. Amen.
Amen.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom. Shabbat shalom.